Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. I'd like to welcome you all to this press briefing and signing event that the board of the Given Library and Tufts Archives in the village of Pinehurst have arranged for today to make some special and important announcements about the future of some services greatly appreciated and greatly needed by the village of Pinehurst. So officially, the purpose of this event is to announce that the village of Pinehurst and the directors of the Given Memorial Library and the Tufts Archives have agreed to general terms under which the village will assume responsibility for the library and the archives. The directors of the board of the library are led by Stuart Mills, to my right, whom you all know, and Stuart will introduce members of the board who are with us this afternoon. Stuart?
Thank you, John. Let's see, we have a good representation here. Rich Keating is here. He's the vice president of the board. Thanks, Rich. I think Bill McAdam is here or going to be here. Bill is the treasurer of the board. John McLean, who's the secretary of the board, I think was going to be here. I see Patrick Berry, one of our directors. Claire Bergen, one of our directors, is here. Bill Callison, president of the board 2 times ago. She's not currently a director, but Diane Westbrook is here, and she's my immediate predecessor. Thank you, Diane, for coming. Anthony Karuba is a director. Lisa Case is a director. Matt Crisco is a director. Cardi Davis is here. He's a director of the board. Jim Fisher couldn't be here. Jan Ludwig, I think, was planning on being here, but I haven't seen him yet. Judy McCaffrey. Jane Motika, I know, is here. Hi, Jane. Mary Robeson is the director, and Alice Roman Hess is our other director. Of course, Audrey Moriarty is the executive director, and she's here as well. And Michelle Gertzel is here. Hi, Michelle. Didn't mean to forget you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Stuart. As mayor, I will represent the village of Pinehurst, but I'm joined here by our village manager, Jeff Sanborn, by a council person, and Mayor Pro Tem Judy Davis, who was intimately involved in these negotiations with the library directors, and Jane Hogeman, council member, Kevin Drum, council member. Happy to have you all here, of course, today. I'd like to provide a little background as to how we got here, and it marks, I think, the importance of this particular event in the life of the village of Pinehurst, certainly for the library and the archives and all of our residents. As all of you know, a new business model for managing and developing the Given Library and the Tufts Archives has been in the minds of the directors, village government, and Pinehurst citizens for several years. Numerous studies, surveys, consultations with experts, and citizen interviews have been conducted. During the last year, a key priority of the village council has been to determine if and how village government should take responsibility for the provision of library services to Pinehurst residents. The council has considered various options, as you are aware. We initially focused on the provision of library services only. The alignment of the library with the archives and the importance of both to Pinehurst residents was well noted, however. Last fall, the council began to update the directors on the options we were considering, and also to discuss with them their generous letter which outlined library assets to be transferred to the village. It became clear that the intentions of the directors and village government were the same, namely, to find the best long-term solution for management and preservation of the library and the archives that was consistent with the best long-term interests of our residents. Once that common ground was found, the council reached a consensus to focus on assuming by donation the assets and operations of the Given Memorial Library, Tufts Archives, and on the current site. Council prepared suggestions as to how that transaction could work, presented them to the directors, clarifications were made, and the general terms agreed just last week, as expressed in the press release. I believe that Stuart has some additional comments he would wish to make, and I'll call on him at this time to do that. Stuart?
Thanks, John. And then Audrey has some things to say, too.
Yes.
You know, in our society, in our village, in our county, state, et cetera, there's a little competition now between images versus text, screens versus pages, binge watching versus binge reading. And I don't need to remind you that we might be, those of us on the text pages and binge reading side might be losing the battle a little bit. I think what's happening today is an answer from the Village of Pinehurst that they're very interested in supporting the literary and other interests of residents of Pinehurst. And I think it's fantastic that they're making this investment. The village, it's not the first investment, of course. The village has supported the library financially for years. The staff and the council throughout this process have worked collaboratively with us and been very open to our ideas. And I believe the result will be an expanded library, which will contribute immeasurably to the quality of our unique village life here, and especially to the literacy needs and the literary interests of young and old residents of Pinehurst, as well as addressing future growth and future people who will come here. And I think it's just fantastic. This is another example of a cooperative public-private partnership. It reminds me of some of the other successful things that the village has done, such as the Fair Barn and the Village Arboretum in partnership with the Village Heritage Foundation. And I think it will just contribute more to the specialness of this place. You know, Pinehurst is unique. You know, village life has died in many places in this country, but Pinehurst is an active, beautiful village. We may take it for granted because we have other active, beautiful villages around, like Southern Pines, I would point out. But this is a unique way of life that's being preserved here. It's extremely special. It's still more common in many European countries, but this investment, I think, just promotes that and will provide a foundation for the continued specialness of this village.
Audrey?
Thank you, Stuart. It was clear to us many, many years ago that we were not meeting the needs of our community here. And as the community has grown, it's even more so. And we were stumped with the best ways to do this. And we tried fundraising, et cetera. And we've done well enough to stay open this long, but we knew the future was clear to us. We weren't going to be able to continue to have the library we wanted, the library we needed without the help of the Village of Pinehurst. And I'm very pleased that we have gotten to this point because I think it's critical in how we meet the needs of the people of the village and keep our history intact. So I'm very excited about this initial move into our collaboration.
Thank you, Audrey. Thanks very much for that. Stuart, we have an envelope in front of us.
And the winner is?
We'll sign each.
Oh. You want to swap?
Thank you. Sure. We'll give you a bump.
Super.
There you go.
All right, appreciate it.
Now, we have put together, again, jointly a very definitive and interesting press release. There are copies on the back table. I think we have at least one or two people here that would like to ask questions. And so at this time, Stuart and I will entertain any questions and try to answer them to the best of our ability. We think that most of the important parts of this transaction are in the press release, which you've seen. But please feel free to ask questions as you wish. Mary Kate? And we need to get a microphone for you. I think Jason could do that, or anybody else who would like to ask a question.
Thanks. I guess the first thing that jumped out at me is just, so you're marking $1 million for the near-term improvements to the library and archives. How was that figure arrived at? Is that,
The original figure, the $1 million?
yes, sir.
Yeah. That figure was a figure that, of course, on the one hand related to some funds that the village had put away for a potential library transaction over time. It was also seen to be a very substantial number and marked our commitment to make improvements to the building, even initially, while other plans are made for a potential expansion. Stuart, would you care to comment on that? Or?
No, I mean, you may recall that as part of the Great Expectations campaign, we came to the village and asked them if they'd contribute to expanding the library, and they said they would, and they set aside $1 million, on the condition that that be matched with some other contributions. Those other contributions were not forthcoming, and the village had every right to take that money back. But what they've done is they've kept that alive, in case something like this would happen, and I think that showed a lot of forethought.
And this other question may be premature, but can you say more about the ongoing role of the Given Tufts organization? Will it be primarily fundraising, I guess, going forward?
I'm going to repeat that question to make sure we've got it into the record and Stuart can play. The question is, how will the board operate into the future, the current directors?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Okay, Stuart?
Well, we intend to remain very much involved, but less as the governing board of the library and the archives and more as a Friends of the Library and Archives type of organization. Of course, the nonprofit organization, which is officially called the Given Memorial Library, Inc., has an endowment, which is about $2.5 million right now, and we'll dedicate, any earnings on that to the library and the archives over time. Exactly the mechanics for that we'll have to work out with the village as part of the definitive agreement. But we also have, regular donors and friends in the community. I imagine we'll continue to support the library, hopefully grow that endowment, help work a capital campaign that might enable us to afford some of the nicer things at the library that we might not otherwise be able to afford. So I think we will be very much alive and involved in the future and looking forward to it. And I think the way that the roles have been divided up make a lot of sense.
In discussions with the directors, executive committee, and then their meetings, it's very important to us, and we made that quite clear, that a continuing operation of the board will be very important to the library and archive success into the future. Stuart mentioned that we are hopeful as things progress that capital campaigns may be run in the future for the benefit of the library, calling on independent resources in Pinehurst and other places, and that will be a role that the board would play. I can say also that we encourage the board to help us assure that Audrey Moriarty would be continuing on with the organization, and I believe that is intended to be the case. Not just intended, but will be the case.
Be a very, very large raise. Just kidding.
And I think that going forward, as Stuart has said, again, there will be a very helpful role to this long-term success of this operation into the future with the board. Other questions? Mary Kate, any directors, anybody else? Well, Jeff, anything from village operations point of view you'd like to comment on with this?
Maybe not from the standpoint of operations, but as I sit here and kind of reflect on where we are in all of this, and there's been a lot of water under the bridge and a lot of hard work and a lot of collaboration that's gotten us to this point. And, we might have a sense of thinking we're there, we got to the finish line, we got to the end, but we're really just starting again.
That's right.
Now we have to redouble and reinvest ourselves in bringing this agreement to fruition into something that we, a fully fleshed out document that tells us how and when and where and why, and then get to the hard work of making it all happen. And so this is an exciting time for us.
Totally agree. Judy?
I certainly agree with Jeff's comment that we have miles to go before we sleep. But I also like to thank Audrey for her tremendous support during this journey, as well as all of the Given Tufts board. We've learned a lot and met a lot of interesting librarians across the state, and have learned a lot about what makes important for a modern day library. I also want to emphasize the archives being part of this transaction. I think we have a lot of opportunity in an expanded facility to give more weight and more exposure to those archives that are so valuable to the citizens of Pinehurst and visitors that come to our community. So I think it's really good that we have roped all that in together as part of this transaction.
John, may I say something else?
Please, Audrey, and speak right into that
I just
microphone.
want to thank everybody who's here, who has worked so hard, and all the people before us who worked. This was, as Jeff said, it was a long time coming, but people have put a lot of time in. And many of you aren't here who did it, but thanks to everybody who helped so hard to get us here, including staff, Natalie, people who aren't here, et cetera, and everybody who is. We've worked hard on this, and I think we've got over the biggest hurdle right now.
Yes, we have. And I think the village council members, all of us, worked very hard to make this right and worked very successfully with Stuart and some of the executive committee initially. And again, we appreciate the support of the full board in this. We look forward to working with you as we proceed on this journey. So thank you all for being here. It's a good day for Pinehurst in spite of the rain, and I look forward to more discussions as we go forward. Thank you very much.